rise to the nation of Israel, so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, and greetings to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad throughout the four corners of the earth. Sons of Isaac Israelite congregation, Sabbath study. So tonight's lesson, we're going to go into the affliction of Israel, right, in 175 BC. So we know, of course, we're in our fifth day of Hanukkah, all right, or the Feast of Dedication. We're on our fifth day. I hope everybody is having a good time. I hope everybody is really, enjoying themselves and enjoying the spiritual, foods and fruits of, the understanding of the Feast of Dedication. All right. We all go through many trials and tribulations, in our life. We all face many, persecutions. We face those things, in our day-to-day walk. Avoidable, uh, being a follower of Christ. All right. So we know that many of those things we cannot help, but we know that we have the God of Israel on our side, and He's the one who the the helping factor. All right, in our day-to-day walk. So of course, we just want to make sure that we give Him all honor and praise and glory, through through the remainder of our feast of dedication, and also it's a Sabbath day. Of course, we also have our new moon coming up Sunday night. All right. We can definitely want to go into that. I also have a presentation, preparing a presentation for, the last day of Feast of Dedication dealing with Hasmonean dynasty. Okay. Just some of the important factors dealing with the Hasmonean dynasty, and, some of the key figures, many of the names and titles that were given to the sons of Mattathias. You'll also understand, why these young men were so great and why they were so courageous in, fighting against the Gentiles, all right, and the Greeks. We want to open up, man, into the book of Maccabees, and we're gonna go back and forth a little bit from first Maccabees and second Maccabees. So we want to get a little history to, pertaining to our fathers, right? So when we're dealing with the book of Maccabees, right? Maccabee in the Greek meaning hammer. We want to, basically understand that we're dealing with the history, right, of the Levitical priesthood here, and the things that are transpiring in these books is dealing with the actual Levitical priest. When we're dealing with the Levitical priest, we're dealing with the Levites, the sons of Levi, and also the sons of Aaron. Okay, so you see that the Levites were set apart service of worship, all right, for the Most High. Okay, and you'll see that the sons of Aaron, right, were specifically chosen out of all of the sons of Levi, ones who would receive the offerings and the sacrifices. So they had a very, very important responsibility because they were responsible for the atonement of our nation, and they were practically the mediators. So that was the role in which the Levites played. But you began to see over time, as corruption began to come into the nation, the nation became. You see that many of our fathers, man, those who claim Levitical descent, man, there's a corruption that came into the priesthood. All right, so many men desired the title of the high priest, but remember, the Most High is the one who ordained the next high priest. Okay, so that's one thing that we have to understand. So make sure that you go back into the Old Testament and familiarize yourself with the descendants of Levi, who they are, who came from where, and what their real purpose was. Like I said, man, when you begin to read into the book of Maccabees, you'll kind of figure why the Most High, man, suspended the priesthood, from the nation of Israel, because of the vast corruption that came along with it. All right. Now let's get into it a little bit. So now I wanted to just go into First Maccabees, right? And I just wanted to read chapter 1, and then of course I wanted to start at just verse 9. All right, so I'm not going to go too much into into the chapter 1, so that when we go into chapter 2, we'll understand some things. Or excuse me, or in the book of Second Maccabees, we'll understand some things. So it says here in the book of First Maccabees, chapter 1 and verse 9, death, meaning Alexander, they all put crowns upon themselves, right? So when it says they, it's talking about the generals of Alexander the Greek. So all of his generals basically crowned themselves as kings. And now it says, his death, they all put crowns upon themselves, so did their sons after them many years. And evils were multiplied in the earth. All right, so you see that evils began to multiply in the earth because of these Greeks. All right, these Edomites, these Macedonians. So they're the generals, right? They were very evil and very wicked men. Okay, and their sons were very, very much so, even more evil than they were. To the Josephus and read about the history, man, pertaining to, how the Greeks, they basically practically they were afflicting the Jews. They had been afflicting the Jews even after the death of Alexander himself. Come in to make war upon the Israelites on the Sabbath day, which we'll read about. So that was one of the main reasons. That was one of their main strategies that they used to try to destroy us, because they knew, from what we call with Friday sundown to Saturday sundown, that we would not bear arms. We wouldn't even throw a stone. We felt that it would break the Sabbath day of the Heavenly Father. All right, we didn't do anything. We rested, and that came back to haunt us. All right, and you'll begin to see that our fathers, they basically had to go back into the law, man, and make counsel and actually understand that they had to defend themselves. All right, at all costs. Let's read on. So it says, and evils were multiplied in the earth. So this is when the earth became corrupted and very polluted. All right. And there came out of them a wicked root. Antiochus, surname Epiphanes. So this man's name was Antiochus, right? Antiochus. Okay. And he says, whose surname was Epiphanes. Epiphanes meaning God manifested. All right. So he deemed himself as God manifested on earth. So this was the title that he gave to him. This is how prideful Antiochus was. All right. So it says the son of Antiochus the king, or who also is known as Antiochus the Great, or Antiochus the Third, at Rome, and he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. So this is 137 years, right? Into the reign of the kingdom of the Greeks. Now it says, in those days there went out wicked men who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. Now we see and understand, right? What's being briefly stated here is that there were wicked men in Israel that basically wanted to go back and side with the Gentiles, okay? But we know, according to the laws of our Father, right? The laws of our God said, seek not their peace, neither their prosperity, right? All the days of your life. So we weren't supposed to seek their peace and their prosperity, because there was a reason why the Most High said that, and we're gonna read about it and read why the Lord said that. Okay, Deuteronomy chapter, I believe 23 and verse 6. So that what says in verse 12, Deuteronomy 23 and 6. This device pleased them well, and certain of the people were so forward herein, meaning that they were so evil, right? Their minds were so evil and bent on making alliance with the Greeks. This is what they did. That they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen, right? So you see that they had went to the Greek government, right? They went to the king, and they they received license. All right, they wanted to be licensed to open up many of the businesses and schools, right? That the Greeks had. Okay, so they understood there was a lot of money to be profited on. Greek culture, society, and etc. Okay, so then it says, whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the custom of the customs of the heathen. Mm-hmm. So yes, when it says a place of exercise, it does mean gymnasium. All right, so it's basically showing you that they built places of exercise in the where they exercised in the nude. So they did exercise in the nude, but also something else. Okay, so now it says, and they made themselves uncircumcised and forsook the holy covenant and joined themselves unto the heathen. So how would you join yourself unto the heathen? Understand? Because they would do what? Meaning that they would adopt their culture, right? They would adopt their philosophies. You see, they would adopt their dress, their style of dress. So all of that ideology, so on and so forth, man. So basically, they will accept all of the ways of the Greeks entirely. Just like you see blacks here in America, right? You see that they accept people who are cooned out. They accept all of the ways of America. You see that? They accept the homosexual. They accept the the American philosophy, right? The democracy, let freedom reign, and all of that stuff when you're not technically free. All right. You know what I'm saying? They accept the schooling system. You know, they accept the wealth and the prosperity that the heathen has to offer, right? No matter how satanic it may be. And then they seek to do they seek licenses to do the exact same thing are doing. All right. Mm-hmm. And they'll do anything to basically please their masters, right? Just as we're going to read, man, about the Israelites here. All right. That's why it says they went to the king and they got license from the king. Okay, to open up many of the schools, many of the gyms, and so on and so forth, the businesses, all of that, right? To bring their own people to the fashion of the Greeks. And we're going to read about all of that. Themselves uncircumcised and forsook the holy covenant and joined themselves into the heathen and were sold to do mischief. So they were sold to do evil. You see that? They were so locked into they were so adamant and locked into joining the heathen, man, that they would even kill their own people to do so. So that's why, man, when we look at this history, man, we got to actually look at it even as we're living in our times today. Now let's go to the book of Second Maccabees. Let's go to Second Maccabees. Let's get a little bit of the history there. So Second Maccabees or the book of Second Hammer, right? It goes into a little bit more detail that were happening, in the book of First Maccabees. So everything literally in First Maccabees was basically a bridge, all right? But you see in Second Maccabees, everything goes into a little bit more detail. Way more events that transpired, way more wars that occurred. We're only given what we need to know, about what happened during that time. So let's open up to the book of Second Maccabees, chapter 4. And we're going to start at verse 1. All right. So it says, this Simon now, of whom we spake afore, having of the money and of his country, slandered Onias, who was the high priest, terrified Helioratus, and been the worker of these evils. So he was basically slandering. He was basically slandering Onias so bad, right, that he had fooled the Greek treasurer into thinking that this man was a cheat. You see that? Bad he was slandering his brother's name. Okay. So now it says, bold to call him a traitor that had deserved well of the city and tendered his own nation and was so zealous of the law. Their hatred went so far that by one of Simon's factions murder was committed. Onias, seeing the danger of this contention, Apollonius, as being the governor of Syria and Phoenice, did rage and increase Simon's malice. He went to the king not to be an accuser of his countrymen, good of all, both public and private. Yes.
This is not the Simon the brother of Maccabees, right?
No.
Okay.
This was basically Simon of the tribe of Benjamin. All right, so he was a governor of the temple, and it says that him and Onias had a bad falling out. All right, so they had a bad falling out. Real quick, let's go back. Let's go to chapter 3. Real quick, let's go to chapter 3. Chapter 3, and we want to start at verse 1. So we'll back up a little bit more. So it says, now when the holy city was inhabited with all peace, kept very well. So this is when Israel was at peace. The law was being kept very well by the people, right? Because of the godliness of Onias, the high priest, right? Because of his godliness and the way he controlled things. So remember, there was no more king. All right. So the closest thing that the people had to a ruler was the high priest. All right. So now we know about the prophecy concerning Coniah and that his seed would no longer sit upon the throne of David. Okay. So what was the next thing that the people had as far as a leader? Actually, the high priest. All right. So Onias, the high priest, and his hatred of wickedness. So Onias had a sore hatred for wickedness. Now it says, verse 2, and it came to pass that even the kings themselves did honor the place, meaning they honored Jerusalem. All right, the holy temple, and magnified the temple with their best gifts. So they were offering gifts. All right, remember Alexander, all the way to Seleucus the first. They will all give gifts unto the king, right? Unto the temple of the Heavenly Father. So it says, insomuch that Seleucus, king of Asia, of his own revenues, bear all the cost belonging to the service of the sacrifices. That he paid for all of the sacrifices that were being made. Okay. But one Simon of the tribe of Benjamin, look at this. This is the traitor. Pay attention. This is the traitor. The tribe of Benjamin, who was made governor of the temple, fell out with the high priest about disorder in the city. So you see that? So now you see that it was Onias. Remember, it said Onias hated evil. Okay. It was something that Simon was not doing right. And there was disorder in the city, and he was getting on them about it. And you see what Simon did. Now check this out, because he was angry. So now you see that this is where the division starts. All right, because this man hated the reproof that he was given about disorder in the city, sell out his own people. And this is how evil and how wicked, man, this brother was. All right. Now it says, but one Simon of the tribe of Benjamin, who was made governor of the temple, fell out with the high priest about disorder in the city. And when he could not overcome Onias, Apollonius, the son of Herasius, who then was governor of Cilicia and Phoenice, right? So now he went to another governor, right? So he couldn't overcome Onias, so he wasn't about to out-talk Onias, right? About disorder, about why there was disorder in the city, as a loss. So now he went and he did what? He went to another governor, right? So that he could have some support to go to the king. Now check this out. And told him, and Jerusalem was full of infinite sums of money. Now look at that. So now he's going to go. He went to this man and told him of what was in the temple that they didn't know about. Look at that. All right. So it says, so that the multitude of their riches pertained to the account of the sacrifices was innumerable. Now look at that. So now remember, it said that the king, right, Seleucus himself had paid for that were offered. You see that? But now he's saying, well, look, the king is being fooled now. They got money to pay for the sacrifices. And the money that they have is innumerable. But let's read on. and that it was possible to bring into the king's hand. It was possible. So now he's saying you can bring it into the king's hand. Now, when Apollonius came to the king and had showed him of the money whereof he was told, the king chose out Heliorodus, his treasurer, and sent him with a commandment to bring him the foresaid money. King heard about this, so now he was like, now when the king heard about this, he wanted that money. All right. So remember, you got to understand, man, how greedful, man, the Greeks were. All right, especially the dynasty of Seleucus. Okay, and forthwith Herodotus took his journey under a color of visiting in the city of Cilicia and Phoenice, but indeed to fulfill the king's purpose. And when he was come to Jerusalem and had been courteously received by the high priest of the city, intelligence was given of the money and declared wherefore he came and asked of these things were so indeed. So he asked him, is it true? An amount of money? No. And then he said, then the high priest told him he says that there was such money laid up for the relief of the widows and the fatherless. There was money that wasn't a part of what they would give the king, right? But that was for the relief of the widows and the fatherless. All right. So they had a relief for them. Because the people, when they would fall on hard times, who did they have to go to? They went to the priest. Remember, for bringing the tithes to the high priest. All right. So it says, and that some of it belonged to Hyrcanus, son of Tobias, a man of great dignity, and not as that wicked Simon had misformed of. In all was 400 talents of silver and 200 talents of gold. So he's letting them know that's how much money we have. All right, that's what we have in store. Okay, but check this out. He didn't care. He's like, all right, give me the money. Check this out. And it was altogether impossible that such wrong them that had committed it into the holiness of the place and to the majesty and invulnerable sanctity of the temple of the world. So the temple of Jerusalem was one of the most beautiful places on earth. It was like basically like one of the, it was probably, I would say the number one wonder of the world at its time. All right. So it says, because the king's commandment gave him, said that anywise it must be brought into the king's treasury. So he said, all right, anyway, it got to still be brought to the king, so you got to give it up. So that the day which he appointed, he entered into order this matter. Wherefore there was no small agony throughout the whole city. Prostrated himself before the altar in their priestly vestments, called unto heaven upon him that made the law concerning things given to be kept, that they should safely preserve for such as had committed them to be kept. Then whoso had looked in the face, it would have wounded his heart, for his countenance and the changing of his color declared agony of his mind. So this deeply cut the soul of Onias, man, because he was like, man, what happened because of this man named Simon of the tribe of Benjamin, who sold out his own people, and he still had to give up the money, even though he told him the truth. All right, he told him this is what we have. You still, all right, you still got to give it up anyway. Now it's for the people. So now he got to give everything that he has in there because he knows the consequence of what could happen if he don't. All right. But this is the evil about those who sell out their own people. All right. This is what happens. When you have evil men amongst you. You see that? So now let's read on. So this man And so it was like it says that he began to change color, man, because any that was in his mind. All right, just like you could just see it written all over his face, you would just fall into tears if you was to see his face. Okay, so it says, verse 17: For what man was with fear and horror of the body, that it was manifested to them that looked upon him, what sorrow he had now in his heart. It was sore hurt. All right, sore hurt. Agony unto him. All right, what he had to do. So then you'll read that somebody came and basically had smoked the treasurer. All right. Not it was Christ. Okay. So when you read verses 24, 25, okay, but we'll go into that at a later time. All right. So now let's go back to chapter 4. So let's go back to chapter 4. Okay. So you got some understanding on that? Mm-hmm. So it was Benjamin who was the one who sold out S.O.I.I.C, all right, and the people, the children of Israel. So now picking up where I left off, verse 5. So it says, and when the king he went to the king not to be an accuser of his countrymen, but seeking good of all, both public and private. So those that were backing up, who were in support of Simon, all right, and they were basically, he was speaking for them. All right, Simon was the face, so he was going to speak for them on behalf of the king. Okay, that's why I said both public and private.
You mean Onaz?
No.
That's who, right?
Huh? No, he was talking about Simon. So let's read on. So it says, for he saw that it was impossible that the state should continue quiet, and Simon leave his folly unless the king did look thereunto. Of Seleucus, when Antiochus called Epiphanes, took the kingdom, Jason, the brother of Onias, labored to underhand to be high priest. Have the governor of the people, right? That was now against him, but now he had his own brother, his own flesh and blood, that wanted to take the high priesthood from him. You see how evil that is? His own brother labored to underhand him, right? Because remember, you were high priest until you died.
Yeah.
You understand? That's how it went for the sons of Aaron, and then the next one will come up, the high priest. But you got some brothers that can't wait that long. I believe you would serve as a high priest from 35 to about, I believe, 55 or 60. Yeah, but the majority of the time, brothers would die around that time. I'll go more into it when I go back over the priesthood, and then I'll really solidify that. So now he says, but after the death of Seleucus, called Epiphanes, God manifested, it took the kingdom, Jason, the brother of Onias, labored to underhand to be high priest, promising unto the king by intercession 360 talents of silver, another revenue of 80 talents of silver, right? So now that's what we read about in the book of First Maccabees. It says there went out of Israel wicked men. These wicked men that had went out and was speaking for the people. You see that? So we already see it's two. So we got Simon and we have Jason. Remember those two names. Write those two names down. Simon and Jason. Simon of the tribe of Benjamin and Jason of the sons of Aaron, the brother of Onias, high priest, of the high priest. So now it says, now he promised them that he was promising the king, if you give me the high priesthood, right, an additional amount of 303 talents of silver and another revenue of 80 talents, right? Now check that out. It says verse 9, besides this, he promised to assign 150 more. Look at that. So he's adding it on. He's making it sound good to the king's ear. It sound good to the king. And you know Edomites, man, if you about business and you about bringing them revenue, guess what? Sponsor you, they fund you, they gonna make sure you do all of that as long as you keep good with your word. that you're gonna bring them money. All right. So now you understand that a lot of people are gonna have to suffer because of this. Taxes are gonna have to go up. That means you're gonna have to bring more tithes than what you usually would bring, right? So instead of 10, you're gonna have to bring 20 to 30%. You see? However much, man, the high priest will tax you. This is how evil, man, these men were. And guess what? That same spirit is even amongst the nation of Israel, even unto this very day. Check that out. Tithe. 30% tithe. You see that? That spirit is still here. Okay. But let's read on. So it says, besides this, he promised assign 150 more if he might have a license to set him up a place of exercise. Exercise were very popular amongst the Greeks. All right, just like your gymnasiums today, sports. For those who are practicing for the Olympic Games, would do what? They would train year round. So just guess what? So now you have these rich Greek athletes from all over the earth coming to your facility to train, and it's one of the best, and it's in one of the best cities on earth. Look at that. Philosophers, the teachers coming in, you teaching the Greek philosophy, you presenting the culture. Man, we're talking about they were trying to make a spot for the heathen, man, and that's exactly what they did. All right, when you read in chapter 1, it said that the inhabitants, man, were basically Gentile. Jerusalem became strange to those that were born in her. So he said, and for training up the youth in the fashions of the Greeks. Look at that. Training up the youth in the fashion of the Greeks, meaning they're going to be trendsetters. They want to popularize clothing. You see what I'm saying? The look, the attitude of the Greeks. The language. You see how we hype up everything, man, like homosexuality and stuff like that. You see how we hype up those things? You see how brothers make tight jeans look fashionable to where everybody want to wear them? You see how sisters, right, on TV, you see how they put on, they get butt implants and breast implants, and they make it look beautiful, like Kim Kardashian. Everybody want that Coke bottle figure, ass type shape. You see sisters want that. See that? And what they're gonna do? They're gonna be willing to pay top dollar, man, to get that. All right. But now just imagine this. Just imagine, man, you had men who were pushing the Greek culture amongst the nation of Israel at this time. All right. For to train up the youth in the fashion of the heathen and to write them of Jerusalem by the name of Antiochians or Antiochans. Right. So look at that. That's the name they wanted to give. They wanted to be called. He was going to say, I'm going to call my brethren after you. I'm going to name them after you. Like you being called American, just like you being called African American. You see that? Hispanic. All of these different names, man, that have been placed upon you. Black, Afro American. He said he was going to put this name on his own people when he trains up the youth after their fashion. Look at that. The king had granted, he had gotten into his hand the rule. Look at that. Granted him, right, all of what he said. And it says, or what he asked for. It says, excuse me. And when he had gotten his hand to the rule, he forthwith brought his own nation to the Greek fashion, to the Greekish fashion. Look at that. To the Greekish fashion. Trendsetters, right? Those who were willing to follow Jason the high priest and Simon. You know what I'm saying? Those who were willing to follow them, he brought those people, man, and their families into the Greek. Right? And the royal privileges were granted of special favor to the Jews by the means of John, the father of Epolemus, who went ambassador to Rome for enmity and aid. He took away and putting down the governments which were according to the law. He brought up new customs against the law. Look at that. Now remember, the Jews are trying to make good relations with the Romans, and it says now he took that away. He took that away. He was like, nah, we ain't gonna make no alliance with the Romans. We're gonna make it with the Greeks. And that's why he said, man, he took all of that away and then said they took down the government of the Jews. And what did he do? He set up the government of the Greeks and made laws against the customs of our fathers. This is what he was doing is he was trying to pray himself as high priest. All right. This was evil, man.
This explains how they knew so much about us.
Yep. This is evil. And this is why, and you understand why Ptolemy Philadelphus wanted the Bible translated, excuse me, he wanted the Hebrew scrolls translated into Greek so that he could read it. That's where we had the that's where the Septuagint come from. That's our history. Those were the records of our fathers, man, accumulated in a volume of a book. So just imagine you have this book in your hands. Guess what? Now you're able to understand the full history of a people and its power. Better way, if you're understanding the mindset of a people, what better way to deal with them than have their own people deal with you? You see that?
Right, that's true.
You want to destroy this? You want to destroy this holy people? Then use their people against them. And that's what they're doing right now. They're using us against our own. All right. So it says, which were according to the law, he brought up a new customs against the law. For he built gladly a place of exercise under the tower itself, and brought the chief young men under his subjection, and made them wear a palaeus. All right. I believe it's those hats, man, that you see in the old Greek paintings. Remember, we weren't supposed to be wearing no damn hats. I think it has something to do with some sort of homosexual culture or vibe, just like skinny jeans are to black men now. That too, you know what I'm saying? To Hebrews at that time.
How do you spell
Pileus. Pileus. Now it says, now such was the height of the Greek fashion, and the increase of heathenish manners, as though through the exceeding profaneness of Jason, that ungodly wretch, and no high priest. Look at that. So he said, man, the heathenish manner amongst the nation, man, it began to excel because of the wickedness of this brother, right? That's why he says he wasn't no high priest. He bought the high priesthood. That's what he did. The Most High didn't ordain this man to be no priest. He bought it. Evil, right? So now it says the priest had no courage to serve anymore at the altar, but despising the temple. Look at that. He even caused the other priests, right? The other sons of Aaron, man, to have no more courage, man, in serving the Lord. He says, and they said, but they despised the temple, right? And neglecting the sacrifices, hastened to be partakers of the unlawful allowance in the place of exercise, right? You ever wanted to inspire to throw shot put and discus and run naked and nude because they seen the money that you can gain and the respect and the notoriety that you can get from participating in these games, right? Look at that. So they began to hate what they were doing. The sacrifices that our fathers had to conduct in order for the sins to be forgiven. Look, you think they had to teach against all of that. You don't have to conduct sacrifices anymore. You don't have to do this. You don't have to keep these laws. They had to teach Christ.
And they still supposed
you see, they were still supposed to be doing this. You see, but they basically pushed all that aside. That was the agenda of the Greeks from jump, man, to remove the laws of our fathers, all right, and to bring our nation into subjection. But that just shows you, man, how powerful Satan was, man. You know what I'm saying? And how he was dealing with, his children, right? The children of Esau. All right, you call them the sons of Satan if you want to. You know it was like it's like you'd be like, damn, why is it that they're trying to? Why is it that these nations, man, try so hard to remove Israel from their laws, statutes, and commandments?
Under and we're too powerful for them.
Huh?
When we're under and we're too powerful for
Right.
them. Nothing can.
You still got. I mean, but look at it like this: our fathers, man, they would beg these nations, and they would ask these nations, just let us keep our commandments, man. We'll let you rule over us. Just let us keep. It's right there. What does it? Just let us keep our commandments. But let's read on. So it says, neglecting the sacrifices, hasten to be partakers of the unlawful allowance in the place of exercise after the game of discus called them forth. Look at that. Discus had called them forth. So it says, not setting by the honors of their fathers, but liking the glory of the Grecian best of all. So it said they liked the glory of the Grecian best of all. So they didn't care. They no longer cared about sacrifices of our nation. All right. They no longer cared about that. They no longer cared about teaching the law, statutes, and commandments, upholding the sacrifices, man, for the nation, for our sins. Okay. The most high power and all that. They didn't care about that no more. Okay. So it says, by reason whereof sore calamity came upon them, for they had them to be their enemies and avengers, whose customs they followed so earnestly, and unto whom they desired to be like in all things. Look at that. Desire to be like the Greeks in all things. Look at that. They desire to be like them. All right. So it says sore calamities befall them because they rejected they rejected the high priesthood. All right. That's why he says by reason calamities came upon them, for they had them to be their enemies and avengers, whose customs they followed so earnestly, unto whom they desired to be like in all things. It is not a light thing to do wickedly against the laws of God. So it's not a light thing, man, to do wickedly against the laws of the Father. But the time following shall declare these things. Right? So it's even more evil, man, that was going to come upon our nation. All right, check this out. So now it says, now when the game that was used every 5th year was kept at Tyrus, the king being present, right? So remember, they would have Greek Olympic Games. You see that? Just like here, the custom is still applies even now. All right. So the 5th year, right, they have the games, but they would have it in different regions. Okay, just like they do here in the world. They have it in Germany, they'll have it in America, they'll have it in Russia, they'll have it in China, they'll have it in Australia. These games, right? So the Greek culture is still here even until this very day. Now let's read on. So now it says, this ungracious Jason sent special messengers from Jerusalem, who were Antiochans, 300 drums of silver to the sacrifice of Hercules. Look at that. Hercules is dealing with the Nimrod. All right. So now he says, which even the bearers thereof thought fit not to bestow upon the sacrifice, because it was not convenient, reserved for other charges. This money then, in regards to the sender, was appointed to Hercules' sacrifice. But because of the bearers thereof, it was employed to make of galleys. All right. So now he says, now when Apollonius, the son of Mattathias, was sent into Egypt for the coronation of King Ptolemaeus, Philemon understood him not to be well affected to his affairs, provided for his own safety, whereupon he came to Joppe, and from thence to Jerusalem, where he was honorably received of Jason and of the city, in with torchlight and the great shouting. And so afterwards went with this host unto Phoenice. 3 years afterward, Jason sent to Millennius the aforesaid Simon's brother. So this was the brother of Simon, all right, the traitor, to bear the money unto the king and to put him in mind of certain necessary matters. Being brought to the presence of the king, when he had magnified him for the glory of a glorious appearance of his power, got the priesthood to himself. So he wanted the high priesthood for himself. All right. So basically, he basically underhanded his brother for the high priesthood, offering more than Jason by 300 talents of silver. Look at that. So now the high priesthood was something that you could buy now. All right. So it wasn't the Most High that sat there and ordained the priest. Now you sitting here allowing a heathenish king, man, to give you the position of high priest. So that was the evils, man. Those were the evils, man, of our people, man, at this time. All right, his own brother, all right, Menelaus, um, excuse me, Simon's brother, began to underhand Jason. All right. So now it says, with the king's mandate, bringing nothing worthy of the high priesthood, but having the fury of cruel tyrant and the rage of a savage beast. So that's what he came with. Okay. He came with fury. He came with cruel fury, right? And it says, and he was raging like a savage beast. It says, then Jason, who had undermined his own brother, being undermined by another, was compelled to flee into the country of the Ammonites. All right, so now you're about to see the end of Jason, okay? Onias, all right? You're going to see that he betrayed his brother Onias, okay? So now you see Jason got underhanded, right? Just the way he underhanded his brother for the high priesthood. Menelaus got the principality, and this man wasn't. And check this out, Menelaus wasn't even of the sons of Aaron. He wasn't even the sons of Aaron. This man was of the tribe of Benjamin. He was of the tribe of Benjamin, trying to do what? Trying to receive the throne of the high priest. This was never to be given to the Levitical priest. All right. So Menelaus got the principality, but as for the money that he had promised unto the king, he took no good order for it, albeit Tarthus, the ruler of the castle, acquired it. Him pertaineth the gathering of the customs, therefore they were both called before the king. Now Menelaus left his brother Lysimachus in the priesthood. So now Menelaus, he had to go before the king to give account for what happened to the monies. Now you see that Lysimachus is his brother, which is also the tribe of Benjamin, or Benjamites. All right. They were now trying to take the high priesthood. So now you see he left his brother in charge of the high priesthood. Tartus left Cretus, who was called, excuse me, I'm sorry, I jumped up. He says, who was governor of the Cyphorenians, all right, meaning the island of Cyprus. Okay, that's who he was governor of. So then it says, things were in doing, they of Tarsus and Molosus made insurrection. So there was a rebellion, right? It says, because they were given to the king's concubine called Antichus. So the king's concubine. It says, then came the king in all haste to appease the matter, leaving Andronicus, a man in authority, for his deputy. Now Menelaus, supposing that he had gotten convenient time, stole certain vessels of gold out of the temple and gave some of them to Andronicus. He sold into Tyrus and the cities round about. So he took, look, now check this out. He took vessels out of the temple. He took vessels out of the temple and began to sell them. Oh, again, right? It says so. Now it says, which when Onias knew of a surety, he reproved him and withdrew himself into the sanctuary at Delphine, and lieth by Antioch, which lieth by ocean. Wherefore Menelaus, taking Andronicus apart, prayed him to get Onias into his hands, who being persuaded thereto, and coming to Onias in deceit, gave him his right hand with oath, and thought he were suspected by him, persuaded he him to come forth of the sanctuary, whom he had shut up without regards of justice. For the which cause not only the Jews, but many also of other nations took great indignation and were much grieved for the unjust murder of the man. Yes, right. So now this upsetted many of the people that who knew Onias. Okay, it says when the king was come again from the places of Cilicia, the Jews that were in the city and certain of the Greeks that abhorred the fact also complained because Onias was slain without cause. So they murdered this man for no reason. All right, and you're going to see that a severe judgment came upon them. Okay. So now let's go to chapter 6. All right, I want to read chapter 6. So chapter 5 goes into detail about what happened to Jason. Jason was basically kicked out. Then he was kicked out of Egypt and he went to dwell amongst the Lacedaemonians, and that's where he died. The Lacedaemonians are Spartans. Spartans were actually Israelites. All right, contrary to what some believe, yes, the Spartans were Israelites because they were kindred. Okay, it says right here that Onias, Spartans were kinsmen to Onias. Excuse me, not Onias, but unto Jason. Jason was the brother of Onias. All right. So it actually shows you that. All right. So they weren't of some foreign descent. They were Israelites themselves. Yes. Mhm. Yeah. You could read verse 30. Read verse 36. You can read the rest of the chapter. It goes into more detail about what happened after they had murdered Onias. All right. So I just wanted to get through it. So I just wanted because I wanted to jump to chapter 6. So now, let's read chapter 6. I'm gonna start at verse 1. All right. So before that, you read about how much of the affliction was beginning to come upon the Jews, and you'll see how Judas Maccabeus and his family, and others with drew themselves into the wilderness, and they lived in the mountains after the manner of beasts because of the pollutions that were occurring in the land of Judea. All right. Chapter 6, verse 1. Not long after this, the king sent an old man of Athens to compel the Jews to depart from the laws of their fathers and not to live after the laws of God, right? So you see that many of the Jews, they were still able to live under the customs, right? So remember, you see that many of the Jews, they joined unto the Greek fashion, willingly, right? But then you see there were those of our fathers that did not. They did not comply. They still kept the Sabbath days. Make policies against, keeping of the laws, right? They were still trying to get the remainder of the Jews to convert, all right, or to be Hellenized. So now you had those the Hellenization of the Jews. The first part, it was not forced, but then there was a forced Hellenization. So So now this is the forced Hellenization part. So now it said it says so an old man of Athens compelled the Jews to depart from the laws of their fathers and not to live after the laws of God, and to pollute also the temple at Jerusalem and call it the temple of Jupiter Olympius. Check this out. The temple, they said they wanted to call, yes.
It was forced in the beginning, wasn't it?
No.
The Maccabees was before this time, right?
No.
It wasn't?
Mm-mm. In more detail in Second Maccabees.
So this isn't before Second Maccabees, it's actually before?
This is still going into chapter 1.
Okay.
All right.
That's what I was trying to understand.
Yeah.
You said it wasn't forced, but in chapter 1 it talks about
in chapter 1, part of chapter 1 in the beginning, it was not forced. When you read verse 11 and 12,
yeah, I'm saying that first part.
Yeah, through
but
15.
Later on in chapter 1 it talks
and
about
yes, it talked about the forced conversion of the Jews and how Antiochus wanted everybody to follow the laws. Then in chapter 2, you see the revolt started.
So in Second Maccabees, it's still talking about chapter 1, and this is in between the first part of chapter 1 and the chapter.
Yes, all of this is going into more detail. Chapter 1 is like the abridged form, okay? But now in Second Maccabees, it's going into more detail, all right? It's going into way more detail, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So now let's read. So now we're going to read, yeah. Excuse me. All right. So remember, there was still much affliction going on. So now we're getting into the forced aspect of the Hellenization, and also how they begin to slaughter the Jews, right, for not keeping their pagan holidays. All right. So now it said the temple of Jupiter, Jupiter Olympius, right? So who is Jupiter Olympius? When you go into the Bible, right, in the book of Acts chapter 14 and verse 12, you'll see that they call Barnabas Jupiter and they call Paul Mercurius, right? Yes, 14 and 12. When they call when they call Barnabas Jupiter and they call Paul Mercurius, dealing with who? Hermes, the Greek god. All right. So now, when they call Barnabas Jupiter, because Barnabas was the one who was the chief speaker, Zeus, the Greek god. All right. So Jupiter in Greek is actually, you're dealing with Zeus. All right. Jupiter is Zeus. Zeus is actually Nimrod. All right. All of it is Nimrod, pretty much. Remember, all of the gods in which the nations worship, to the same deity. All right. The same man who called himself a deity, and that's Nimrod. All right. Yes.
Why would they call Paul and Barnabas these names?
Because the wisdom that they were speaking. All right. So remember, Hermes was like the messenger god. Basically called him. They were basically saying like these men are sent from God or sent from or basically all right, the great wisdom that they're speaking. Okay, that's how wise these brothers were in the knowledge of the Most High. Okay, they thought these men were deities because of their wisdom. Remember, in the Greek and Roman culture, man, wisdom was like, you see what I'm saying? Everybody prized wisdom. That's why Paul said the Greeks seek wisdom. You see what I'm saying? The Jews seek a sign and the Greeks seek wisdom. Yeah. You know what I mean? But the preaching of Yahweh Shai is like a stumbling block to them. Mm-hmm. You see? Only be a stumbling block to them because they were Jews. You understand? That's why the Jews who basically practiced the Mosaic law, you know what I'm saying? He would be a stumbling block to them because they still think that, oh, we still got to practice animal sacrifice. Have the Greeks, right? The Jews under the Greek philosophy and idea. Well, then what do you mean? So what are you talking about? What are you talking about these Jewish customs for? So the temple of Jupiter, back to verse 2. So they said they wanted to pollute the temple in Jerusalem and call it the temple of Jupiter Olympius. And it says that in Gerizim of Jupiter, strangers, as they did desire that dwelt in the place. The coming in of the mischief was sore and grievous to the people. So it was grievous unto the children of Israel, man, because in this, and they were trying to destroy their temple. See, they're trying to call it by another name, man, a name that was never given to the temple was never called that by their fathers. All right. We knew that this is where the Most High placed his name. This was the jewel and the apple of the people's eye. So just imagine, man, somebody coming in and changing what's everything that's in your house, taking all your furniture out, taking your toilet out, putting something else in replace of that. You know what I mean? It's like ain't nothing in there is yours, someone else's. All right. You're gonna feel some type of way. So now it says, verse 3, the coming in of this mischief was sore and grievous to the people, for the temple was filled with riot and reveling by the Gentiles who dallied with harlots. So look at that. Was in there messing around with prostitutes in the temple. This is the temple in Jerusalem. This is the temple in Jerusalem. All right. This is the same place, man, where the Most High said he placed his name. And they were in there, man. They was messing around with harlots. And had to do with women within the circuit of the holy places. Look at that. So just imagine they in the most holiest of holy having threesomes and orgies. The holiest of holy, with a place where the Most High resides, man. This was a sword. This was like something grievous to the people. This is like will break your heart. So now it says, and besides that, brought in things that were not lawful, that the altar also was filled with profane things which the law forbiddeth. Neither was it lawful for a man to keep the Sabbath days or ancient feast days, as himself at all to be a Jew. So they couldn't profess to be a Jew at all, Israelite at all. You profess yourself to be an Israelite, that was it. Just imagine, man, you walking down the street, right? And they say, so you an Israelite? They already know if you gonna say it. See that? So you an Israelite? Uh, yeah. And then they just gonna slit your throat or turn you into the authorities, right? And profess himself at all to be a Jew. And in the day of the king's birth, every month there were brought by bitter constraint to eat of the sacrifices. And when the feast of Balkis, which is no more than Nimrod, was kept, the Jews were compelled to go and possession to Balkis carrying ivy. So they made the Jews carry ivy. So now it was I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's the ivy, whether it's talking about the plant or the ivy where it's talking about the tusk of an animal. You see, like an elephant. Elephant has ivory in its tusk. That's why ivory is so prized. So it says, it says Jews were compelled to go in possession to Balkis carrying ivy. So if it serves me correctly, the feast of Balkis was like towards like what you call December, right? So like Balkis, Saturnalia, all of those were like drunken, reveling feasts where they have orgies and all of that stuff, right? So this is going to show you, man, how they afflicted the Jews. Okay, they afflicted the Jews on their festival days. Okay, it was like something major to them. So that's like you seeing whites here in America, they just beat slaves for the hell of it on Christmas Day for them. On the 4th of July, on their Independence Day, they just assault and beat slaves. You see what I'm saying? So it says, moreover, there went out a decree to the neighboring cities of the heathen by the suggestion of Ptolemy, the Jews, that they should observe the same fashion and be partakers of the sacrifices. So now, because of Ptolemy, and then now the Jews got to partake of the sacrifices. Look at that. Now they got to eat the sacrifices that they abominably sacrificed upon the altar. That's why I said, man, they made them eat of their sacrifices. The things that were offered and sacrificed unto devils, they made the Jews eat of that. Guess what? They got killed. They were murdered. All right. Cold game. game, man. So now, we'll stop there. Are there any questions? All right. So we're gonna pick it up. We're gonna pick it up tomorrow. All right, tomorrow night. Okay. So of course, man, I definitely, would like brothers and sisters to like, subscribe, and share. YouTube channel Sons of Isaac, 144,000, and also check out our website, sons of Isaac 144.org, and check out our live stream that's also coming soon as well. All right. So you'll be able to visually see the classes online live from our website. All right. So with that, I say shalom, kwam yasharala, and definitely continue to have a blessed feast of dedication. Shalom.